Okay, so I'd like to welcome you now to the Fulbright Scholar Webinar Wednesday. Today's edition focuses on opportunities in South and Central Asia. My name is Michelle Belorci, and I'm an Outreach and Recruitment Specialist at IIE, and I'm joined by my colleague Jessica Rosen, who's a Program Officer for South and Central Asia, and she'll be helpful in the Q&A session and kind of helping us get through some of those questions. So what I'd like to do over the next hour is to present some of the opportunities in the region as well as take your questions. So the first half an hour will be dedicated to showcasing the opportunities, and in the second half we'll have plenty of time to take your questions. And I do want to just let everyone know in the audience, just in case, these are opportunities specifically geared towards faculty and professionals. In other words, if you have recently completed a bachelor's degree and have a few years of experience, I would like to direct you to the Fulbright student program, which is a completely different program with a different deadline. So just in case those of you are on the line, if you're looking for opportunities to study or to research and you are freshly out of undergraduate or recently completed a master's, the student program would be for you. The opportunities today are for scholars and professionals. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so just a little background on the Fulbright program. The program has partnered with 160 countries around the world and offers thousands of fellowships and scholarships annually to faculty, administrators, artists, journalists, lawyers, musicians, you name it, people from all kinds of backgrounds to study, conduct research, or to teach. And really the goal of the Fulbright program is to foster mutual understanding between people and across cultures and nations, and ultimately to improve lives around the world. The program was established in 1946 by an act of Congress, and it is the flagship international educational and cultural exchange program of the United States. Specifically, the Fulbright program is sponsored by the Department of State with funding from several of our partner countries, and oftentimes their funding might contribute even more than what the U.S. contributes. So there's certainly a lot of interest in the program around the world, and the Institute of International Education administers the Fulbright Scholar Program. So that's where IIE comes in. The diversity and inclusion statement we have here is very much part of our outreach and recruitment strategy. We aim to reach out to all kinds of institutions and applicants from all backgrounds, and we want to let everyone know that Fulbright is open and welcoming, and we would love to work with you and see what opportunities are available for you around the world. In terms of the numbers, we like to share this slide to give everyone an idea that there are a lot of awards out there. Specifically for today, I'm talking about the Scholar Award opportunities. So there's 800 grants available every year. Our catalog of awards has all of these opportunities featured. So you'll notice that there's about 460 unique award opportunities that offer up to about 800 grants, 800 spots. So there's definitely a lot out there to take advantage of, and the application deadline is September 15th of this year. So you have plenty of time to put in a very competitive application. We just opened the application last month, so you have really the entire spring and summer to put something together, and I'll be walking you through the process as well. We get a lot of questions about, what is the preference for Fulbright? Should I propose a teaching project? Is it preferred for research? And really the answer is it depends. The pie chart that we're showing here is just a display of last year's breakdown. So it does change from year to year, but you'll notice about half of the awards have some teaching component. And then research is about a third, between a quarter and a third. So it really depends on what you're looking for. We also have awards specifically open to postdoc scholars. So those of you that have completed your terminal degree within the last 5 years. And then, of course, the seminar opportunities for international education administrators. So there is something certainly available out there. And again, it also should be, you should also note that the award description often lets the applicant choose. So many of the awards will list research, teaching, or a combination, and that really is up to you then what you'd like to propose. Okay, so in terms of the baseline eligibility for the Scholar Program, U.S. citizenship is required. So again, having a green card is not enough. This is for U.S. citizens based in the U.S. That's really kind of supporting the mission of the program, kind of these bilateral relations. But after that, it really depends on the award description. So again, we have opportunities for early career applicants, postdocs, all the way up to senior scholars in terms of, distinguished chair opportunities and everything in between. So some awards will state that a terminal degree or a PhD is not required. Others will state a master's or a PhD is required with X number of years of teaching experience or X number of years of research. So it's important to take a look at the award description. And then if you are a returning Fulbrighter, you're looking to have another grant, we do ask that you take a look at the policies and ensure that your grant, there's at least a 2-year waiting period, and that you also, in the application, you also justify the need for another Fulbright. All right, so let's just dig right into the opportunities in South and Central Asia. We have 11 countries that we'll be discussing today, all the way from Kazakhstan to Sri Lanka. And there are 16 unique award offerings with about 70 grants. Some of the awards have the flex option, and what that means is that rather than doing your research or teaching for 5 or 6 months in one go, in one visit, you do have the option to conduct research, let's say, in 3 visits of 2 months, or typically more like 2 visits of 3 months over 2 academic years. So really depending on what the country is offering, you can also, if your research needs to have kind of multiple visits, if it's a longitudinal study, that feature is built in to many of the awards. So we're going to start off with India, and India is actually the largest program, not only in the region, but overall in the U.S. Scholar Program. It offers 40 teaching and research grants among these 2 awards. And the nice thing about the awards to India is that they are open to all disciplines and to all levels of scholars, and in the one case, in the first award, to professionals as well. So if you really aren't sure where you could go and you haven't decided, India is very welcoming. They really want to have U.S. academics and professionals, lawyers, journalists, you name it, come for 4 to 9 months. So there are 42 spots available under this award. There's 42 grants. The flex option is also available, I believe specifically for research only. Now, when we talk about a teaching grant, that can also encompass curriculum development, faculty advising, faculty training, those kind of things beyond just the in-class teaching. So if you have something in mind where it would be a research project, but it would also incorporate kind of faculty training and things like that, you could contact me and we could see if the commission would be open to that for the flex option. But typically flex is strictly for research. So that's the Fulbright Nehru Academic and Professional Excellence Award. And again, 42 spots, plenty of availability. If you consider many of the awards in the catalog tend to only offer 1 or 2 grants. So again, it's a large group that goes to India every year. And again, open to all scholar levels. We do also have the Fulbright Nehru Distinguished Chair Award. There are 2 grants. And that really is focused more on teaching. There is also a teaching research option available, and that does not have the flex option because really the idea is that the distinguished chair would have a direct impact on the kind of day-to-day functionings of a particular department or center, and kind of really build capacity in students and faculty as well. So 2 wonderful options for India. It has a very active Fulbright Commission based in New Delhi. And if you are curious about the award but you don't have any contacts or you don't know where to start, there's so many different universities and institutions across the country, we are happy to help you find placements or seek out letters of invitation. Although invitation letters are completely optional for these awards, we can certainly advise you and give you some options to consider. So at the end of this presentation, I'll be showing the email that you can contact. It's my contact that's also listed in each of the awards. So certainly feel free to reach out. You can send me your CV, your resume, and I'm happy to advise you or match up a couple of award opportunities for you so that you can decide. Another thing I wanted to point out is that you can only apply for 1 award per competition. So it's very important that you kind of shop around in the catalog of awards, looking to see where you would be the best fit in terms of experience and the topic and the relevance to the host country, those kind of things. So again, just 1 application per competition. So, all right, and then moving on to the other countries in South Asia, I've kind of put them all on one slide because they tend to be either open to all disciplines or multiple disciplines. Starting off with Bhutan, which offers a 1 10-month teaching grant. So Bhutan is really looking for capacity building in this sense, and they want somebody on the ground for the full academic year in the classroom, teaching, building curriculum, working with faculty, teaching students. So this is a wonderful opportunity to really have an impact in Bhutan. In this case, the award actually does not allow or does not prefer the strictly advised applicants not to contact institutions in Bhutan because this really is a placed award. And we don't have a U.S. embassy in Bhutan, so all of this, we work with our colleagues in India and the government of Bhutan to place the grantee every year. So you can take a look at the Fulbright Scholar Directory and see where past grantees have been, which institutions, what kind of projects they've done. But just to give you an idea that you would be proposing to teach something, but again, the government will ultimately decide where you'd be the best fit. So that's Bhutan. Then moving on to Maldives. And for those of you that are not aware, it's a very beautiful location. There's a university in the capital, the Maldivian National University. This is where that award is placed. It's for 3 to 4 months, and the preference is for teaching. And they do list a couple of the fields of interest, law and education and whatnot. And if you are also interested in working with a ministry there, and you can also be aligned with the ministry depending on where the embassy places you. So again, it's a wonderful experience to get practical, kind of real on-the-ground experience working with the government there or at the university. So if you haven't thought about Maldives, I would certainly encourage you to take a look at the award there. Then moving on from the coast of India back up to the Himalayas, Nepal offers 2 awards, one for teaching and research and one for peer research. Now I should let you know that the Teaching and Research Award is primarily geared towards teaching. The ratio listed in the award description is 80% teaching, 20% research. So they really do prefer scholars being placed in one of the 4 universities listed in the award. And then if you do have a research project you'd like to conduct kind of side by side, you would have a little bit of time, but again, it would be smaller in scope. And then the research award is open to any appropriate institution is how they've termed it. So whatever institution you feel would be a good fit to carry out that research, whether it's a university or a think tank or an NGO or a research center, a research institute, you can propose that as well. For both awards, Nepal, a letter of invitation is required. And if you have any specific questions about what kind of projects they prefer or what they've done in the past, again, I would take a look at the Fulbright Scholar Directory to see what kind of projects have been done. There are only one grant for each award, so just 2 spots for Nepal. Then moving along to Pakistan, they have an All Disciplines Award, 2 to 4 months, and again, there's a very kind of detailed information that you can find in the award description. The award is restricted to 3 particular cities in Pakistan, so if you are interested in something in Islamabad or Faisalabad or Karachi, I believe is the 3rd one, then you can take a look. Otherwise, it is a bit restricted in terms of location. And then last but not least is Sri Lanka. They have an All Disciplines Award open to 4 to 9 months. Sri Lanka is very interested in hosting U.S. scholars. They have 3 spots available, and they have recently expressed interest in the fields of nursing and other STEM fields, engineering, things like that. So Sri Lanka would also be a great place. They have several universities across the island, and the contacts are listed there. You can also reach out to the commission. The email address is listed there, so feel free if you are trying to identify a host institution, you can contact the commission in Sri Lanka. All right, and then we have a whole host of awards available in Central Asia. So this is kind of the second half of the region. And again, really you'll notice based on kind of the length alone, there's a lot of interest in capacity building in the region. This is a wonderful region for Fulbright scholars to have impact and have a deep impact because they don't get a steady flow. You know, unlike India, which has 40 spots, it's also a very large country, but these other places, other countries in Central Asia don't have Fulbrighters continuously at the same institutions. And so you might be at an institution where you're the first or maybe the second Fulbrighter, and so you really have an opportunity to have impact, make a difference, and really have a unique opportunity. So starting with Kazakhstan, again, and all of these awards are either All Disciplines Awards or open to multiple disciplines. So I've hyperlinked the awards, the countries, and once we archive this webinar after it's recorded, this will be made available on our website, and feel free to download the PDF and you can go through and click through all of these. So starting with Kazakhstan, they have an All Disciplines Award, a Multiple Disciplines Award for 5 to 10 months. And again, they're really looking to have a scholar there for the full semester or the academic year. They do offer the flex option for research, so that's something that you can tap into if you have a research project. And while most of the courses can be taught in English, I believe for some of the STEM, and again, it depends on which STEM subjects, but some knowledge of Russian or Kazakh might be helpful. So if that's not something available to you, as long as the host institution is fine with you teaching the courses that you'd like to in English, that's typically fine. So keep in mind, most of the teaching for the Fulbright program is in English, with a few exceptions around the world. Moving on to Kyrgyz Republic, otherwise known as Kyrgyzstan, you'll see it mentioned both ways. We have an award for 5 to 10 months. So it's not 5 or 10. You could also choose 7 months. So Kyrgyz Republic has that All Disciplines Award. It has the flex option available as well. And many of these awards will also list particular universities as pre-identified host institutions. That's the case for Tajikistan. They do identify the host institutions where scholars would be placed, and so depending on your field, you would just research a little bit about that host institution and kind of draft your proposal with that host in mind. So Tajikistan is a 4 to 9 months award. And then moving on to Turkmenistan, this one is strictly teaching, and it's for 10 months. So again, similar to Bhutan, really looking for capacity building, really looking to have somebody make impact over the long term. And so there are 2 spots for scholars to come and teach for 10 months. And then in Uzbekistan, again, we have the All Disciplines Award available. It's for 5 to 10 months. And what's new about this award this year is that it's open to professional projects. So professionals are welcome to apply, and a professional project is something that we've deemed that doesn't fit neatly into the research or teaching categories, but it's something that would benefit the scholar in going to conduct research, and also the scholar would have an impact, scholar or the professional would have an impact at the host institution as well. So perhaps a little more collaborative in nature, but certainly with perhaps a shorter timeline. So that's the 5 countries there. And then last but not least, we have this award that it's not new this year. We had it last year, and it was quite popular, the Teaching English as a Foreign Language Award, where applicants are asked to rank their country of preference. So you won't be placed all over. You'll have one country that you'll be placed in, but you can choose from any of the 5 countries listed here on the screen. So if you really want to go to Uzbekistan, but Kazakhstan is your second preference, then you could list that. So that is a 3 to 10 month opportunity, and a PhD or terminal degree is not required, but they do, of course, require particular experience in TEFL or TEFL, and that is something that is a priority for the region as well. Okay, now in terms of the multi-country opportunity, and you'll find across the Fulbright Scholar Program, each region tends to offer at least one multi-country award. So for South and Central Asia, it is the South and Central Asia Regional Research Program. So this is an award specifically designed for scholars to conduct research for projects that require them visiting more than one country in the region. So in this case, up to 3 countries, so 2 to 3 countries in the region can be selected. And it is open to all disciplines and all topics pertaining to the region. That includes historical as well as contemporary projects. Again, it's very open in terms of career level, and it is a 3 to 9 month option. Now, depending on which country you select, which countries, an invitation letter is required for all except for India. And then I wanted to share, just to give you an idea of a successful past project. In this case, the scholar went to India and Nepal and looked at how intervention in Afghanistan circulates in South Asia, specifically among Nepalese guards and Indian engineers. So, so that is the multi-country opportunity. Again, keep in mind, when you have a project that you think might be a good fit for this award, if you feel that one country kind of, if the project aligns closer to one country than the other, then I would recommend the single country grants, either applying just to Nepal or just to India, et cetera. But if it really is tied in, if the project proposal really ties in both or 3 countries in very, very well, then this is something that you would want to consider. Now keep in mind, all 3 countries or both countries need to have an interest in the project for it to be able to be selected. So, so you really want to make sure that you have strong letters of invitation, that you have good buy-in from the local hosts, and that it really kind of, the proposal really connects the dots as to why you need to be in these places. Okay, and the last thing I want to point out before we turn it over to the Q&A is just a few things here in terms of the award features and the requirements. So as I mentioned, in general, for the Fulbright Scholar Program, English is sufficient. But if you do have a project where, a letter of a language proficiency requirement is listed as a requirement in the award, you must indicate how this will be, and if you don't have that language proficiency, you must indicate how you will conduct the research in English. For this particular region, it really doesn't come into play, perhaps maybe more in Central Asia where knowledge of Russian or local dialects or, Kazakh or Tajik or any of the local languages might be helpful. But again, more often than not, a lot of our scholars don't necessarily have the language, the local language fluencies, and they're able to be successful on their grant. And then a couple things I wanted to point out in terms of nice features that we have. Anybody who has an award to the South and Central Asia region, the SCA region, if they are in their country on their grant at the time, typically it's February or March, they will be invited to the mid-year conference in India. And this is a conference for all Fulbright grantees in the region, and it's held at a different location every year in India. And it's a wonderful opportunity for Fulbrighters to network with each other, learn more about each other's projects. There's different conferences and proposals and different research shared, not only just scholars but students as well. So it's a wonderful opportunity, and also to see performances and whatnot. So the mid-year conference is one feature. And then another in-country feature is the regional travel program. Now this is something that you need to apply to, but once you're in country on your grant, you are eligible to apply for the regional travel program, which would fund a visit to another country in the region to attend a conference or workshop, to do, give a lecture, anything that's not conducting research. We're not supporting research on this one. It's simply an exposure for you to have another experience in a country. It's a short-term kind of 2 to 14-day opportunity, and that is something available once you're in the country. So. All right. So before we do this, I wanted to see how our questions were coming along, and if we still have time, then we will open it up to the website and the catalog. So let's see. Yes, we do have some questions coming in. So Jess, let me just see if there's anything right off the bat that I can ask of you. So it says, all right, so the first one we have is for India, for Fulbright Nehru, does there have to be a hosting institution? There has to have a, let's see. Okay, I'm not quite sure what the question is here, but I think they're asking if the host institution has to have an open position, kind of a vacancy for the Fulbrighter. And that's not the case. So it's important when you're reaching out to host institutions to let them know that you're applying through the Fulbright program, and that typically there is no cost, unless they would like to provide something, there's really no cost up front to them to have, you working with them, collaborating with them, teaching there, that you will receive a stipend and all of that through the Fulbright program. So unless they'd like to provide an office space or any other kind of meal plan or whatever the case is, it's really up to them, but there's nothing required financially or in kind from the host institution. Let's see, we have another question. I plan to graduate from my doctoral program by June of 2021. I want to apply for Fulbright in Nepal. However, the Nepali awards state that they don't want early career. Does this mean I should not apply? Jess, you want to take that one?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Let's see, I wonder if, Jess, are you muted? Or?
Can you hear me, Michelle?
Okay, so I think Jess might be having a technical difficulty. So in terms of this question, that's correct. If the award description states that they are not open to early career, that means they're looking for applicants that have completed their terminal degree, their PhD, more than 5 years ago. So I would encourage you to consider another country in the region if possible, if your project allows you to. India, for example, is open to early career. There are several other countries in the region that are open to early career. All right, so let's see. For Flex Awards, this is about Flex. Okay, if Flex Awards are to be research-focused and not involve teaching, are there other ways we can plan to give back to the host institution, for example, through professional development seminars, other options that are traditionally, yes, so certainly, so this is a great question. You'll notice in each of there's a kind of a paragraph that you'll see in every award description that says, in addition to, the activity that the scholar undertakes, the commission encourages or the country encourages, seminars or lectures or kind of speaking around the country. And some of the commissions and embassies will really certainly loop you in and have you do some of these professional development things at the host institution. And they might also invite you to give talks outside of your host institution. So depending on the level of engagement, there are a lot of typically opportunities available to scholars outside of the host placement. Okay, so we have a question about Bhutan, and let's see. Just a moment. Okay, the question about Bhutan says the specific grant does not require an invitation letter. However, if I were planning to apply for a multi-country research program grant in India and Bhutan, would I need an invitation letter from Bhutan? And yes, that is correct. So the single country award to Bhutan asks that the scholar not seek out a letter. It says the letter should not be sought. However, for the regional research program that involves more than one country, you can contact an institution in Bhutan, but the kind of caveat is that that may or may not be the place where the government thinks that you would be a good fit, but certainly it's indicating to them that this is where you have buy-in and this is where you feel you'd be the most relevant. And I believe more often than not they do take those into consideration and grant those placements. But again, it's not kind of set in stone, for example. Let's see, we have another question about the multi-country grants or South and Central Asia Regional Research one. So the question is travel covered from the U.S. to the destination country and then to the second country? Okay, so those kind of questions can be answered once you receive the grant, but typically the travel is covered for all of the awards, and so you don't have to worry about the expenses for the round-trip tickets. And if you do have the multi-country award, then it's assumed that you'll need more than one plane ticket to one particular country. So, all right, let's see. Okay, so we have a question from someone who says they're eligible for sabbatical in 3 years. What should I be doing? What should I be thinking and doing between now and the year I apply? And are the number and type of fellowships likely to be the same in 3 years? This is a great question. We absolutely recognize that many of you on the call may or may not be applying this year. You're collecting information, you're trying to line it up with your sabbatical, you want to wait till the kids graduate from high school, whatever the case is, who's going to take care of the dog, all of those things come up, and we understand that it takes time to put together a solid application. What you can do now is really go through the catalog of awards, or if you've already decided on a country that we're talking about today, go through the award description and really kind of chart out where you may be a good fit in terms of a host institution, what maybe introduce yourself. The award catalog tends to remain the same, largely, year to year it remains the same, so for the most part. And so if you see that there's an opportunity in India or an opportunity in Nepal, it will most likely be available in the next few years. And again, it's only maybe about a 5% change that we see in awards with the catalog. So I would just say start thinking about what kind of project you could do, where you could be placed, reaching out to potential collaborators. And when it gets closer to it, you can certainly contact us and share your ideas about your proposal, and we can check with the commission or the embassy in that case and see where, if that would be a priority. You really just need to be very kind of specific and targeted when you look at countries that really only have 1 or 2 grants, because you want to ensure that you're proposing something that's relevant and that's important to the country. So if they're looking specifically for contemporary projects and you're proposing something of historical in nature, you may not be competitive there. All right, what else do we have? Let's see. Can you speak about the application acceptance rates for India last year? So actually, the Fulbright Scholar Program doesn't share application statistics. What we say when you're trying to understand where you'd be the most competitive is that you try and find where you'd be the best match. where you would have the most currency, so to speak, and really aligning yourself to be the most competitive for that particular award. So before we move on, let me see if Jessica was able to join us. Jessica, are you on the line?
Yeah, can you hear me a little bit better now? You still can't hear me?
Okay, I don't hear anything. Let's see. All right, it doesn't look like we have any sound coming in. All right, so I guess we won't. All right, everyone. Well, I'm sorry that Jessica couldn't join on the call to share. Again, she works specifically with the U.S. embassies, our colleagues at the State Department and the U.S. embassies in Central Asia, and I wanted to have her join in so she could share some information, but unfortunately our tech is not working out on that end, but that's okay. All right, so let's see, we have some more questions.
Ms. Bell, are you able to hear me now?
If someone has a PhD but is not affiliated with an academic institution, can I apply to those that are open to professionals? Okay, this is a great question. So if you are an independent researcher or an academic who is currently unaffiliated, you would still be considered, you could still be considered as an academic, unless of course you are kind of in a professional field where you are doing consulting projects or you're working with a company. So again, it really depends. If you are unaffiliated and you have your own research project, I would say you would apply as an academic. Professionals are those that typically don't have an academic background or have been in the professional, in the field for several years outside of academia. So they wouldn't necessarily have publications, things like that. Okay, what are the parameters for the professional project? I'm a landscape architect. That has been volunteer. Okay. All right, great. So for the professional project, we do have, if you go on our website, we do have a full page dedicated to what a professional project could look like. Again, it's something that wouldn't necessarily fit with one particular institution, let's say, whereas a traditional research project would have maybe a key collaborator at a particular department at a university or college. A professional project could work across the board with different stakeholders, whether it's in academic institutions or NGOs, et cetera. Let's see, is a letter of invitation needed for India? So that's a great question. A letter of invitation is not required for India. It's completely optional. But again, certainly, and this is guidance we give to everybody for countries all around the world, is that if it's optional, it would certainly help your application if you do have a letter. So, so yeah. Oh, it looks like everyone can hear Jessica. Interesting. So perhaps we can't hear her. I don't know. All right. So let's see what else. Okay. Someone's asking about where we can find successful past projects. So why don't we go over to the Scholar Directory, if we can just open that up and I can share where that is. All right, so let's take a look at the Scholar Directory. Now we're on our main site, CIES.org, and you'll notice the 4 tiles in the middle underneath the picture. And if we click on View the Scholar Directory, we can open that. And here is where you can, if you go to the advanced filters and you type in, let's see, go to the advanced filter, and then let's type in India for the program country. Okay, and then if we go to U.S. Scholar at the top, all right, and then if we click search, we can find out, for example, now again, this only goes back till 2010, to the last 10 years of grantees to India. If you click on their name, you can see what the name of their project was. So here we can see this person, if we scroll down, their project was oh, let's see, that's a seminar. So that's the International Education Seminar. Let's go back to another example. Let's say in political science. And this person's project was called Building an Archive for, Molecular Biology. So it looks like that one didn't have anything to do with political science. But in any case, so you can see the project title when that person was there. And feel free if you're looking for potential contacts. Our alumni are great resources. They can perhaps introduce you to somebody in your field in that particular country. So that's the Fulbright Scholar Directory. Let's go back to our questions and see what we have. All right, so who serves as a reviewer? Oh, this is a good question. Who serves as a reviewer for the applications? So there's several layers of review. So essentially, if we can go back to the PowerPoint, I can share the timeline. And so essentially in September, the deadline is September 15th, and then we conduct technical reviews for completeness. That's done here in our DC office. And then we bring in faculty from several different disciplines, and we hold discipline review meetings. And then all of the applications that are recommended for final review are then sent to the particular country for the final in-country review, and that's made up of various people depending on the size of the country and the number of awards and whatnot, but it's typically an interdisciplinary panel in the second round. And there might be some alumni on the panel, there might not be. It's a good mix. And then at the same time, applications are forwarded to the Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board, otherwise known as the FFSB, and then notifications go out between January and April. So there is kind of that long kind of timeline. Some countries are quite fast and get their notifications by the last week of January, so you can start planning. Others take more time because there are more stakeholders involved. And then in May onwards, the grantees get their packets of information, and if they are going to a country that does not have a Fulbright Commission, they are invited to a pre-departure orientation and get to meet the State Department officials and the IIE staff that manage the grants there. So that's kind of that in a nutshell. Let's go back to, okay. All right, so do we need to contact host institutions in Pakistan? For Pakistan, do we need to okay, so the question is, do we need to contact host institutions? I believe for Pakistan, you do need to contact them. A letter of invitation is required. Again, you can double check. Sometimes the award requirements change year to year, so check in the award description and you can find that information and who to contact. Okay, so let's see. Can my host institution be in a city that's different from my primary site? For example, for the award to India, can I get a letter of invitation from Delhi University but then work in another city outside of Delhi? So actually that would not be possible. The idea is that, and I'm glad you brought this up because we do get a lot of questions, can I have two host institutions, or can I work in this place but teach in this place, or I want to be based in South India but then my institution's in North India. That actually is not part of the mission of Fulbright. Really the idea is that the U.S. scholar would come in, be based at the host institution, and really have an impact over the length of the grant. So having more than one host, being placed in different cities, that wouldn't work. Now there is the possibility, the option for if you have two different sites, let's say in one city. I know that some scholars in the past have taught at one institution, let's say, in Delhi, for example, or in Kathmandu, but their research brought them to the archives or to the Science Institute or a research center or think tank. That's fine. So that's, especially if you're doing a teaching and research combo, or if it's part of the research plan or the professional project, but you can't really be based in two cities. That's something that a lot of the host countries are not interested in. All right, so let's see. And if you have specific questions about the kind of project or the topic, please send them my way. So we'll just share that screen right now where you can send the emails to. It would be South Central Asia at IIE.org, right here, South Central Asia. And I'm happy to answer that. I'm in the inbox, and Jess and I can field some of those questions, but I'll be your primary point of contact. And again, if you haven't done so already, we encourage you to join my Fulbright. This is where you would register your interest. You would get the updates as to when the webinars are, the application webinar. We do an application walkthrough. We do a spotlight on certain countries. So I'll be hosting a spotlight on India, a webinar with an alumni or two. And so that'll be a great thing to tune into. And again, for any disciplines, we'll host one, for STEM-related fields, for law, for journalism. So you're welcome to join these different webinars. Again, this particular webinar is kind of a general overview for the region, but we do go into more specifics, and we try and bring in different speakers as well. All right, so we are down to the last 10 minutes. Let's see if we have some more questions we can take. All right. And I really apologize for the technical thing when we were not able to hear Jessica, but I think many of you in the audience could. So I'm not sure what's going on with our platform. Okay, let's see. Is it possible to know the institutions in India that are likely to have openings in a specific discipline? So again, we had this question about openings, or does the host institution need to have a spot available? Again, letting them know that you're coming through Fulbright would probably kind of make those questions moot, because you're not looking to fill a particular position unless they need to have, they need to account for it that way. So if that's the case, reach out to us and we can speak with the commission to see how you would rectify that. Let's see, can the start date of the departure be adjusted? So typically, all of the awards have a start date, and sometimes it's flexible and sometimes it's not. If it says grants can begin anytime after August 1st, go for it. But if it specifically said grants must start in September and must be completed by June, then you need to work within that timeline, because the host institution or the host country is really looking for someone to be on their academic calendar. All right, so Bhutan, question about the research project. Is there a way to move forward with a research project to Bhutan? The answer is not really. You would need to have a 10-month teaching plan in place. You could perhaps do, in some of your spare time, you might be able to conduct a research project, but the focus of the proposal should be on teaching. Okay, so is it possible to work with a faculty member in a university in Mumbai? This is for the award for India, or does it have to be New Delhi? Certainly, the entire country is open to Fulbright connections, unless the award description specifically states particular hosts. So in this case, I can think of Nepal, I can think of Tajikistan, I can think of perhaps Turkmenistan, but the rest of the countries are open to all disciplines and or multiple, and open to Maldives has a specific host, but the rest of them, it's up to the applicant to decide which host they'd like to work with. All right, let's take a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. And again, this webinar is going to be archived in the next few days. It's been recorded, and so we will be archiving it. And if you'd like to view it again, or if you have any questions that come up after this webinar, please contact me at southcentralasia@iie.org. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we have a question about eligibility and residence overseas. Yes, so the question is, if you've lived 5 of the past 6 years abroad, are you ineligible? And that is correct. Again, think about the mission of the program, really to strengthen bilateral ties with the U.S. and other partner countries, and so we really want to ensure that you are, that you have U.S. residency, and that when you complete your grant, you're coming back to the U.S. and sharing about your Fulbright experience whether it's in the classroom, whether it's through publications, whether it's through creating a study abroad program or kind of internationalizing the curriculum. We really want to see that there's that multiplier effect that occurs after a grant, and that you kind of bring home those experiences to your home institution or to your work. So you know, being ingrained in the U.S. and residing here and being part of it is really, you know, a key eligibility piece. We have a question about family allowances, and this brings up something that I didn't mention yet, and I'm glad someone brought it up, is that many of the awards have, you know, they're Fulbright, they're family friendly. So we like to say that Fulbright is family friendly. We offer dependent awards and reimbursement for schooling and tuition fees and all of that. So you would take a look at that in the award description. It's under the stipend and benefits tab. Okay. Let's see. Got that. Okay, so is there a preference for arts or sciences for India? So because India has more than 40 grants available, there really isn't any preference. They would love to have artists. They would love to have engineers. They would love to have lawyers and journalists and teachers. So for India, because of the scope of the program, there is really no limitation or no preference. So, so that's the good news about the award to India. Let's see. Okay. Oh, yeah, so family allowance also covers spouses? Yes, so in other words, if you are bringing your family along, they would be considered dependents, and in order to qualify for dependent benefits, if that's available in the award, they do need to accompany you for 80%, at least 80% of the duration of the grant. Okay, so if we are selected for an award and something comes up and we're not actually able to go, can the award be deferred? And I think Jessica would be an expert on this. My gut is that it cannot be deferred. So Jessica, I think they can hear you, so if you can share. But I think typically awards cannot be deferred. Yes, and she confirms that, so cannot. All right, if someone is in the field of TEFL, I think this will be our last question that we take. Would you be more competitive applying to the multi-country for the region or applying to a particular country? Yes, so if you're interested in going to Central Asia to teach English as a foreign language, I would absolutely encourage you to apply for the TEFL award. If you're looking to do TEFL in Nepal or any country that doesn't fall within the Central Asia options, then that would be fine. But certainly we've designed this award so that it captures kind of everybody under that award, and so there's more than one grant available. Typically in the past there was just the TEFL award to Kazakhstan, but we saw that there was interest across Central Asia, and so that's why we allow applicants to rank their preference. So yes, the overarching advice is that apply for the award, go for it where you would be the best match. So if you are TEFL, I would suggest the TEFL award versus an all disciplines award. Okay, so someone again is asking about eligibility. So in terms of the U.S. residency, take a look at the eligibility requirements on our website, and you can see exactly how we count that and what qualifies as a full year being abroad. Again, if the last 5 of the 6 years previous to the application have been spent abroad, you are ineligible to apply this year. But if you just need 1 more year or a few more months, then you would be welcome to apply next year. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think that was it. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We had a very nice turnout. Again, please reach out to me. My name is Michelle. I'm happy to answer your questions at southcentralasia@iie.org. keep in mind the application deadline is September 15. You have plenty of time to get a letter of invitation or a strong proposal kind of drafted and share with your colleagues, get their feedback that you're doing everything right in terms of the timeline. This is a great time to start and start thinking about Fulbright. Thank you, everyone, and good luck. Bye-bye.